Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. This is Kirk Henderson. I'm joined, as always. Well, I guess I shouldn't say always because Ben did the last show.
Literally the last show.
As joined almost always by Josh Bowe. Welcome to the show. Josh, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like I'm cheating. I got to miss the double-digit loss, and I get to come back for the relatively pain-free win, although I guess it wasn't pain-free, technically speaking, but still, I feel like I'm getting off a little easy here.
Yeah. So Saturday night game, Dallas Mavericks traveled up to Portland for the second time in 8 days. That is kind of an underrated element of those games. I now sort of understand when Brad Townsend got like the news about who the Mavericks were going to play when the in-season tournament schedule was decided. He's basically kind of scoffed about the fact that they'd have to go to Portland again. And I get it now that I'm seeing it on the schedule. It's a lot of travel. Like Portland is far away. But the Mavericks are up there. I think this is the start of a couple of game road trip anyway. So they're up there. They're playing Portland, who they gave a pretty hard time 8 days ago. Wasn't that the game that Kyrie got hurt against?
That was the game. Kyrie got hurt.
Yeah, so maybe we just shouldn't play them anymore because, as everybody knows by now, Derek Lively got hurt in this game. The ankle sprain didn't look great, but you never that dude fell on his back from Mars and was somehow okay within 2 games. So I'm, I don't really know what to think about that. We'll probably talk about that one a little bit more. The Mavericks came in and more or less took care of business. Portland gave them a number of I don't want to say scares, but effectively was like, hey, guys, pay attention, more or less. I mean, and every time that happened, the Mavericks would respond with one way, shape, or form. Like, it is pretty funny to me looking at this. Like, Luka Doncic has a 40-point triple-double and is a -4. The Mavericks played really well in the minus Luka minutes, which was a big reason why they won this game. But I don't really know what to make of this one other than I'm glad they went out on the road. I'm glad they took care of business against a team that they should have beaten. And, I see lots of areas for improvement for certain guys in the team. But, the Mavericks are just sort of fighting the tide with a spoon with these injuries. Like, at a certain point, they're just going to get completely waxed 2 or 3 games in a row because they don't have enough guys.
Yeah, well, we keep kind of saying that, and it's still
they keep winning. Yeah,
they still have it. I mean, they lost that Timberwolves loss was kind of ugly, but even then, they still probably hung in tougher than I think most would expect with the lead that they had early in the game. I mean, this was a game you figured like you lose Lively, 6 minutes into the game, and he's basically your either second or third.
I didn't realize I didn't realize it was that soon into the game. I was doing both children's bedtimes.
And it was at a point where the Mavericks were already not looking too great defensively. And so it was just like, this is going to go from bad to worse. And really everything was so nondescript, like in terms of just taking care of business. Otherwise, like Lively to me feels like the biggest thing coming out of this game, but we can wait to talk about it later because we need to talk about the actual game. But
sure.
But yeah, I mean, it was if they were going to lay an egg against a bad team, I mean, the conditions were prime. No Kyrie, still no Josh Green, still no Maxi Kleber. Although saying like still no Maxi Kleber at this point, like there's like no timetable for him.
I actually
sent bringing up his name feels weird.
I sent a text to Bobby Corrala of the Mavs kind of media team there and was like, is this dude alive? Because, there's been no updates. There's been very little reporting on him. Yeah. And, I don't want to be an ass about that sort of stuff, but it does feel weird. We are literally 25 games into the season, and the dude, it's a dislocated toe. did he get it cut off? I'm not being sarcastic here. Like toe stuff can really affect your balance. So I understand why it's taking a while. I just want to know a little more other than dislocated toe.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, I don't think he's even really.
No,
He hasn't fully practiced yet, so yeah, there's not really much that they're letting on. So yeah, I mean, this would have been a prime game for them to drop. With you look at the injuries, you look at losing Lively in the first quarter, and then combine that with this was the first time Portland's had Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, and Malcolm Brogdon together since like the first week of the season, I think. So you just it felt like the conditions were right for a letdown game. And instead, I mean, the Mavericks basically, from the second quarter to the end of the game, basically controlled the game. Portland got out to a really hot start. And then the Mavericks defensively, they didn't adjust too much. I mean, it was kind of more bend, don't break. I mean, Portland scored 72 points in the paint. So I can't really laud the Mavericks defense. It just kind of felt like after that first quarter, the Mavericks offense was like, all right, let's just put this game to bed. Luka was insane, especially in the first half. I think he had 30 in the first half.
He did. 30. Yeah.
He had 30 in the first half?
Mm-hmm. He did.
Okay. I mean, he was insane. Portland's defense was embarrassing, but he was literally doing, just taking what the defense gave him, and he was just kind of waltzing to the rim at ease. And his floater game, like that floater range area, he was really dialed in from that range. So then that just kind of cascaded, and eventually Portland in the second half was like, all right, we'll double him. And then the Mavericks made 16 threes. Not a great percentage because Luka and Timmy didn't shoot all too well, but Seth made a couple. Derrick Jones Jr. made a couple. Markieff Morris made a couple. They made enough shots off the Luka doubles that, I mean, yeah, like you said, they kind of tested them a couple of times, but I mean, this game never felt like it was going to slip away from them. So that's pretty impressive considering. I know Portland stinks, and this game is just a reinforcement of how much they stink. But I feel like considering losing Lively so early in the first quarter, that they were able to still handle their business with relative ease, I feel like that's pretty impressive.
I think that's right. This is going to be one of these games, and I'm just going to nip this. Well, I'm not going to nip. I'm not going to nip it in the bud because social media is going to do what social media does. I don't give a shit about Jeremy Grant scoring a bunch of points. I don't care. Yay, he scored a bunch of points against the Mavericks. Now everybody's going, we need to go get Jeremy Grant. No, we don't. No, we don't. Let me say it again for those in the back. No, we don't. He's shooting 43% from the floor, guys. 43%. Yeah, I'm glad he's scoring a lot of points because the team is fucking terrible.
And he also decided, how many years are we in now?
Yeah, he keeps going to bad teams. It's his call.
Yeah, 4 years ago, he decided he did not want to be a defensive role player on a good team, and he wanted to be on bad teams so he could score a lot of points and make a lot of money, which
good for him.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just like lighting up the Mavericks is not like it's like it's what the against the Mavs All-Stars is what Doncic, or I'm sorry, what Dalton calls them. Yeah. And it's the kind of day, and it's like when it's okay if you only watch the Dallas Mavericks. There are 82 basketball games for that one team in a year. You don't have to watch everyone, but like Grant is capable of, at one point in his career here, is capable of being something. I don't believe he's capable of being anything else now. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Call me. But it's just there's going to be these clamors. Oh, the Mavericks need to go get a guy like him. No, they don't. They need something, but he's not that guy for me. His contract is a lot of money.
Yeah, they need the Grant that played in Denver in 2020 or
that's right.
Oklahoma City. Yes. And that's where people, because that's where he kind of rose to prominence with OKC on some of those teams. And he was like kind of that Swiss jack of all trades, defensive, athletic forward. And people get that first impression drilled in their heads. And then they see, oh, well, he's still that same player, but now he's scoring 23 points a game. And it's like, no, he decided he didn't want to do any of that stuff. He just wanted to score. Yeah, which again, I'm not criticizing him. I'm just saying his fit. He is not the cure to the Mavericks ails on the defensive end.
Not to mention, he makes enough money. Pair the money plus the assets the Mavericks would have, it like logistics don't work. And so I just want to get that out in the open. Yeah. People are going to yell at me for this. I don't fucking care. Like if he goes to, a really good team that really needs him, like that's the kind of guy that's your sixth man kind of scorer. To be quite
or you've
candid.
got like 3 or 4 other good defenders in your starting lineup.
He doesn't help the Mavs defense. They don't need help with offense, guys. They don't. And I'm saying guys, like anybody here doesn't.
If you want to rag on a Trailblazers that Mavericks fans have thirsted for in the past that you won't get any blowback on, DeAndre Ayton will fill that role for
you. Like
quite well.
You know, a pettier person than you or I might go searching through the tweets of people who screamed at you that how we gotta go get him. We gotta go get Ayton. He's right there for the taking. The man sucks.
There's a reason he was right there for the taking.
Soft.
Yeah.
Terrible. One of the first things he ever told media was his goal was to get to a second contract.
Yeah, because I think he's pretty much said he doesn't like it. You know, it's not a big deal. I mean, like it doesn't make him a bad person, but I'm pretty sure basketball is just something that kind of came to him because of his.
He's one of the most physically gifted people on the planet.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a passion for him.
And that's fine.
Yeah, like it didn't make him a bad guy, but it doesn't mean you need him on your basketball team.
Man,
Markieff Morris basically outplayed him tonight, and that's just very funny considering people were basically like throwing stones at me for not wanting to trade Tim Hardaway Jr. for him.
Yeah,
not that Timmy had a dynamite game, even though he scored 25 points, but it's just funny how these things work out. I mean, sometimes they work out wrong, like where I have a lot of egg on my face, but this one.
Well, and it's just so funny because this would have been a game where after Lively goes out, that he should have whooped the Mavericks' ass.
He should. I think he had. I'm pretty sure he finished with 7 points. He had 3 buckets, 7 points. I think all those came in like the first quarter too.
And then he says dumb shit like, "I'm going to be coming out here dominating." It's like, shut the fuck up. Play basketball, you clown show. Sorry, I hate dudes like this because I remember, like, I remember
kind of
hearing
that Christian Wooditis.
Well, it's like when he was back at University of Arizona coming in, there was a video of him talking about he wants to play stretch 4 like LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah,
and like whenever a guy says that, I am just like bright red flag. That means you don't know what you're good at. Anyway, you can tell we're talking about the Blazers because there's just not a ton to say about the Mavericks.
Other than Lucas God and there's stepped up.
So, yes. All right. I want to circle back to that in just a second. But for a minute, guys, you can do me a favor. Hit the like on the stream. It's down there. It's a big thumbs up button. It would help Josh and I. When this video is closed out, if you could return later, go through some of our other videos, leave comments. I really like reading those. It also helps us. We do every single one of our shows live. Due to the feedback from some of our listeners here, I have attempted and am going to keep attempting to do our second show as a part of this one. So it'll just be one continuous stream. I'm going to cut up the audio later. But I like that will happen right after Josh and I are done talking. We bring different fans up here and we can talk just because talking hoops is fun. You can rant. You can tell me where I'm wrong. You can get a takeoff. We had my friend Harold who popped up here the other day who had some absolutely spicy takes about all sorts of different stuff. And it was like 1 a.m. It was a lot of fun. And that's what it's for, because you should be talking basketball about your friends, and that's what we're here for. So subscribe to the show, Pod Maverick. If you are listening on an audio feed, please consider leaving a review and rating. If you're listening on Apple, there's no way you're hearing this on Apple because Apple is still fucked up, and I'm going on week 2 of dealing with Apple customer support. I will figure it out one day. It is truly, truly awful for Josh and I. Like, we are taking a hit to the wallet for this, and I don't know. There's not a great answer, but you guys aren't here to hear about Josh and I's problems. Thank you for letting me shill for just a few minutes. The Luka of it all is just hilarious. He only scored 10 points in the second half because he started doing like Larry Bird, I'm bored stuff.
And also Portland was like, okay, I guess we'll double you. Like, I guess we'll stop letting you get a parade to the rim like whenever you want. Chauncey
Billups called a timeout 18 seconds into the third quarter because Luka just like sauntered into the lane and did a turnaround basket.
Saunter is a great description of his game because I feel like that's what he did every single time he got into the paint, which made it even like funnier. Like, that's what makes it so funny when he dominates these teams, because it's like, are you even breaking a sweat right now? Like, he had a play. It was like the slowest fast break layup of all time because it was like secondary transition, and he just kind of felt like he was just kind of like weaving in between like the cone drills that you see football players do, but like at like quarter speed, and then just kind of got a layup at the end of it. It was just snaking around. I think even the Mavericks TV team chuckled at it a little bit with like, it looked like you were watching a replay in slow motion, but it was like, nope, that's just Luka.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
It's really absolutely crazy. Man, my video is all wobbly. I got this new laptop stand, and whenever I type, it makes the camera shake. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Yeah, this was a game where I was like secretly hoping he would score 50 or 60 points, just because it was something. And I found myself like really just hoping for that, because let's be petty for a second. Mary, you want me to hold him for a minute? Okay. Joel Embiid is out there scoring 1,000 points against some of the worst teams in the NBA, and then missing games against good teams. So like petty me wants Luka to go nuts against a bad Portland team just to keep pace. And he's not able, he wasn't able to do that tonight. I mean, 40
a triple double helps at least.
Yeah, to 40, 12, and 10. But it's just like I really was like, man, go for 50, like make news again, because like Embiid's gonna end up running away with the award this year. I actually think this, because he is literally playing better than he was last year. The team is better, which helps. They don't have some of the weird things hanging over them. But I wanted to sort of take a second to talk like awards with you just while we're here, because we had a guy pop in the other night, my friend Micah, who comes up to the show most nights, and basically make the case for Luka being MVP, Derek Lively being on the all rookie first team, and then let's see here, Tim Hardaway being the sixth man,
and then either Jones or Exum on most improved.
Yeah, and it was just like, yeah, it was fantastic. And so I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts in relation to any of that.
Exum at this rate, Exum for most improved is going to be a lock. I mean, when he entered the starting lineup, it was the Utah game when they won by 50, and he had 5 points, but he had 7 assists and no turnovers. And I was kind of like, this feels like the blueprint for him. He's not necessarily going to be a scorer, but he's someone that can dribble and pass and keep things moving, and keep things from getting gunked up, even if you have Kyrie and Luka both healthy. Just having a third guy that can dribble and pass on the floor makes quite a difference than just having a bunch of spot-up guys. And I was like, don't worry about the scoring. He's averaging, for the month of December, he's averaging 17 points per game. Like since then, 23, 16, 26, 14, 18 points scored. Like... He's on the greatest run of maybe his NBA career right now, considering his time in Utah and Cleveland was pretty brief and also, pretty uneventful, which is why he had to go to Europe in the first place to get his career back on track. Like we're witnessing probably the best, most impactful, productive stretch of professional basketball he's ever played. And it's wild. And he's doing it in different ways. After he tore up Portland already, so I guess I just didn't want to put him on the scouting report. He had 23 points last week against Portland. And again, everything he does is at the rim. And then he did that again against Memphis. And finally, I think the Lakers just were like, do not guard him. Don't let him score layups. And of course, he hit 7 threes. And now he's right back to living in the paint again. 14 against Minnesota, 18 against Portland. And most of those points coming in the paint. It's just... like the scoring and the the passing, the versatility, the tempo, the smarts, the off-ball movement, the cutting, that all stuff makes sense. But the fact that he's doing that and also, scoring like 18 points a game, 17 points a game, basically, like that's, no one had that on their bingo card. I'll just say that. Like, even if you were a Dante Exum truther, what he's been doing in the last few weeks, basically the month of December has been like eye-popping. So that one stands out to me. I feel like if he keeps it up, he's going to lock that down.
That'd be MVP, crazy. Yeah, that would be legitimately crazy. I mean, fantastic, but it's just something I never would have predicted in a million years.
I didn't think he was going to get it. I thought he would be a productive player. Just think he'd get enough minutes to even be considered that. But Luka MVP is tough because I feel like it's not even his fault. There's just that stigma. He was the preseason betting favorite for MVP. Like
he always is. People want him to win. Like there's enough people that are, and this is like the betting influences are based off of like the money coming in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money coming in that wants Luka to win.
Yeah, and I feel like he's gotten some, like, I don't know, kind of pushback for like not having like it's almost like it's being held against him that he hasn't won MVP.
I think so. I mean, there's some of that. I think there's also.
I mean, come on, we just had an MVP last season. That like the MVP award. It's stats, yes, but it's media narrative is almost the most dominant part of it when you look at what happened last season. Not that Embiid wasn't a worthy winner, but I mean,
Embiid was not a worthy winner. Embiid was not. But you're right though.
His stat line was good enough, but like,
sure.
yeah, someone else should have won. But the only reason that person didn't win was because they were mad he won 2 years ago. Like, so like, I don't know if he's gonna be able to get through that. Like, I feel like for him to cut through that kind of stuff, he's obviously going to have to be doing what he's doing right now, which is putting up ridiculous stat lines. But the Mavs have to be a true blood contender, like inner circle, like top 4 team in the NBA contender. Their record's not like that far off from it right now. I mean, they're 16-9, but I don't know if the larger media conglomerate of the NBA considers them one of the best 4 teams in the league. So I think until the Mavericks are like one of those bona fide, like almost a 60-win type team or threatening for that, that's probably what's going to take to push him over the edge. Because I mean, he's got the numbers. I mean, he's had the numbers basically since his sophomore season to be good enough to win MVP. The Mavericks basically need to like win the West or be like a top 2 seed in the West, I think.
Hold on, this is my favorite comment. We got a guy. This is a great comment. Fantasista 0. Who cares about MVP? My man, based off of the sheer amount of shit I see from search engine results and podcasts and videos and betting, literally every NBA fan cares about MVP. You can just put this stuff in the title of things and all of a sudden it bursts into it. And so who cares about it? We could say a lot of people. And that's why we're talking about it. I don't mean to interrupt Josh on that, but I think it's of note because people are probably like, why are we talking about this in light of the game that we just saw? Well, we kind of talked about the game. There's not a lot to talk about. The Mavericks played a bad team and they beat them. And we're going to go and talk about it in the context of like Luka's performance in that context, 40, 12, and 10. Very interesting. But the questions that I have is, do MVP voters hold the last season of the Mavericks against Luka Doncic? Or
I think they do.
Okay. And I think it'd be, kind of fair to. If you're going to be MVP, you don't miss the playoffs like that. Even though I think he gave it his all, but that's, it's a choice that is worth sort of having. And like, while we're kind of talking Luka and MVP, the one that Jason, friend of the show, Jason Gallagher, actually came in here and talked to me about was he thought that the all NBA first team streak was the thing that was most in danger, just due to the narratives arising around guys like Anthony Edwards. Now, granted, all like NBA teams are no longer constricted by positional stuff, so we're going to see some weird and all NBA teams like Luka, Jokic, and Embiid are all going to be on the NBA first team this year. That just is a thing. So that leaves spots for who? Luka and Shea, and that's who I'd pick.
So you're leaving, right? So that means you're leaving off Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards.
Yep.
There's. Now that there's no position, like it used to be kind of easy with the positional thing because it was like, okay, you're just looking at guards,
positions up, right?
Yeah, and when maybe 5 of the best 8 players in the league are forwards and centers, it makes it a little easier to make first team All NBA when you're a guard. Not to say that Luka didn't deserve it. I'm just saying in terms of like the competition. Now that it can be any position, it's definitely going to be harder for him to make it. But he's still, I mean, yeah, I would still do if you had to pin me down right now, it'd probably be Jokic, Embiid, Luka, Shea,
Giannis.
Giannis.
Yeah, you got it like the guy who scored 64 points the other day.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Shout just for a second. I have to say something. If Luka had done what Giannis did,
oh my God,
I can't imagine the discourse. And instead, it's because Luka's such a lunatic competitor. Most of the things were like, this is so funny, we don't know how to talk about it. But like that was the most second grade. This is my ball. And then after the game, this is the best part. He said after the game, the reason he went ballistic was because he wanted to give the game ball not to his mother, which is what he's done for a lot of these things since his father passed away and would be understandable. He wanted to give the game ball to Damian Lillard, who had just passed Kyle Korver on the all-time threes made list. Giannis, you are a loser. All right, back to this. I'm just talking about anything tonight because the Mavericks game was kind of boring. I think that'll be fun to discuss. That's one thing I did love about the in-season tournament is this is the first time I've really thought about any of the awards, but we're 25 games in. Yeah. So this feels a little more natural to discuss these sorts of things. So it's fun. So the MVP will be fun to track. I think a lot of us would like for him to win it, but I don't know if the MVP comes until, like you said, the Mavericks are truly like a 50-plus team pace. Like they're a contender, and I think that's fair. I really do. I think like once you're a contender, then I think you deserve that. And like the Sixers are winning. They're in the conference. They're able to like, it's, they're able to stack games against the Charlottes, the Washington Wizards, and some of these other kind of bleh teams that the Mavericks just, they're kind of doing right now with who they're playing. Like, cause they played the Grizzlies 3 times, Portland twice. They're 4-1 in those games, but it's one of these things I'm gonna be interested to watch as the season goes around, because I don't think that at the moment there's not a way. And I think our guy 17 in the chat talked about how emotional the American media is. I like that assessment. Media, it is what it is, but I think that there's not a lot of understanding of how the hell Luka is doing this. Like whenever I hear things from people on podcasts where it's like, well, Luka, from Zach Lowe and whatnot, just kind of going off the rails about how well they're playing. There's like a sense of not understanding how the hell it's happening. And that means the games aren't actually being watched all that closely. So I think if you're that far outside of the narrative bent, then you probably don't really have much of a chance this season.
Yeah, that makes sense. I will say one more thing about Luka, and this isn't necessarily MVP talk, but we were talking about it in our MMB Slack. The one thing I'm a little trepidatious about is these injuries. He's basically playing like playoff rotation type minutes in the month of December. He's averaging about 40 minutes a game.
Right.
His numbers are insane, but his usage has been off the wall. I think like in the Minnesota loss, his usage was like 42%, which is like, no, no, you can't be that high, but that's not his fault. Like there's nothing he can do. Like no Kyrie, no Josh Green, Jaden Hardy has disappointed. Like that's it. Like Seth Curry is not a guy you run pick and rolls with. Dante Exum, as great as he is like that off ball secondary guy. I don't think you want him on the floor running offense for extended period of time. So Luka kind of has to do what he's like. I don't understand what the alternative would be right now.
I don't see an easy answer. Like unless you're seeding wins, they can't do. They're 16-9,
especially this soft part of the schedule. They have to guarantee these wins.
Right. And I can understand it if you were like, if you're really game theorying it and you say, all right, I want Luka to sit. I want him to just be okay. But
they did that last year and it didn't work.
It didn't work. They lost every single game he was out until Kyrie joined. They were 0-8 until Kyrie joined. And, Kyrie, like one of the night, I don't say like, I'm really delighted to not have to talk about the fact that Kyrie isn't playing. I know he didn't hurt himself, but if you go through the list of Kyrie's injuries over the years, every single injury he's suffered has been a freak, bizarre injury. So he's not injury prone, but he does pick up freak, bizarre injuries. Like that's a thing. And so it's like, I'm glad to not have to talk about it while Luka is going just truly, truly insane during all this. All right. Did we talk about Six Man and Tim Hardaway? I feel like you did.
Well, I didn't. I just kind of glanced past it because that one just feels obvious. Like,
does it? Okay, that's interesting. So it's funny because in the last chat we had 3 or 4 like folks come up on stage here and be like, "We got to trade Tim."
Well, everyone wants to trade Tim.
The sixth man of it all. It's like I just don't know if you could you imagine them? And Jason Kidd said before the game he thinks he's 6th man of the year. So that was pretty interesting to me.
Good Lord, he's almost up to. He's at 17 a game off. This is an award that almost every awards voter just looks up, like who's averaging those points off the bench, click. Like, so the fact that he's not like an incredible passer or a lockdown defender, like that doesn't matter. Like this award is almost always who's the guy scoring the most points off the bench that's eligible. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't have the list in front of me, but he's got to be first in points per game off the bench. So he's averaging basically like 20 a game in December. Funny enough, his shooting has really fallen off in December, but his scoring has gone up because they just need him to take shots with no Kyrie. So, yeah, that feels like unless he just gets into a crazy shooting slump or someone else steps up or yes, I don't know. I don't know. That's an award I'm not really tracking too closely, but it feels like it's sort of his to lose because of the way the history of that award has almost always been just give it to the guy that's scoring the most points off the bench.
The lively one is the one that I'm most interested in because obviously you got to finish the whole season healthy. You have to do a lot, but it's the lively thing seems to be similar to the MVP discussion where in Luka, where the people who aren't watching the Mavericks don't seem to understand how important he is to the team. Sam Quinn of CBS, notorious, I'm sure he could be a nice human. I have no fucking idea, but he has some of the worst basketball takes to like grace the internet. There are all these like weird, should the Mavericks trade Lively to go get Draymond Green? It's like, first of all, get the fuck out of here. And you see this in that people are not grasping how important Lively is to the team. Like the NBA.com rookie ladder had Lively 7th behind Osara Thompson, who has fallen out of the Detroit rotation. And so I get that it's hard to watch a lot of basketball, but I'm curious if Lively playing with Luka through the whole year, let's say he gets 65 games under his belt, if that's enough to crack an all-rookie first team that will also feature Chet Holmgren and also feature Victor Wembanyama. It's just like the Luka all-NBA first team discussion, except,
But I'm pretty sure, yeah. And then, thankfully, the rookie team is
I don't think it's positional anymore.
Oh, really? Didn't he? I thought it used to be positionless.
It used to be, but I think they took that away too. And now, granted, I could be wrong. Someone in the chat will probably correct us. We appreciate that, guys. But let's settle for the top 5 rookies just for the sake of argument.
Because otherwise there's no argument because he's just not good.
He is. He is then. We're kind of in agreement then, right? I mean, he's only at 9 and 8 right now, so he's not necessarily putting up like gaudy numbers. I mean, Wembanyama's at like 19 and 10 or something.
Yeah, I mean, if the rookie team takes into account positions, like I don't know how you can put him above Wembanyama and Chet. But I would put him above a lot of other rookies that aren't Wembanyama and Chet. So that's where the conversation becomes really interesting.
Yeah.
It's probably, I mean, Wembanyama, Chet, Brandon Miller, and then I think after that,
Deontay George, maybe there's a lot of good contributors.
The guy in the Heat, definitely consideration. But yeah, he's right there. And I mean the Mavericks, right? I mean, a lot of this award stuff is going to come down to the fact that the Mavericks, like, let's just be real, they've played a baby soft pillow schedule this season. I know the international travel makes it so they kind of needed it. That's definitely helped them. But I feel like the next like 2 or 3 weeks, they are basically playing like real teams, like almost every other day. No more 2 days off, 3 days off. Like it's playing every other day, playing some back-to-backs against teams that are, currently in playoff position. No more stretches where you play Memphis 3 times, you play Portland twice, you play Utah, you play Washington. You get to play all these fun, crappy teams. So a lot of this is going to come down to we need to kind of see what the Mavericks record is going to stabilize at because, they're 16-9. And they are 3rd in the Western Conference right now, just a scotch ahead of Denver due to percentage points. But if they can if they're at the All-Star break and they're still winning about 64% of their games, they're still around 3rd or 4th, then I think that award conversation is going to definitely heat up for a lot of these guys. But if they hit kind of a rough patch and they fall back down to 5, 6, 7, which still wouldn't be bad, because I mean, they finished 11th. They finished 11th last season, so I think that'll put a hamper in it. But it's hard to say because like I can't guarantee that they're going to still be in third after this 3-week stretch because it's a lot of hard games and they haven't. And you look at the teams they've beaten this season and they just haven't stacked a lot of wins against quality teams, which they don't really need to. They can just keep beating the piss out of the Portlands and the Utahs and the Memphises of the world and make the playoffs just fine. So again, not trying to like be Debbie Downer or anything, just saying I feel like we've still got a little bit left to learn about this particular team.
Yeah. All right. So we did have a question in the chat that was actually related to this game. And someone basically said, can you please talk about Omax? And
like
I will talk about Omax in the sense of, I don't know how to talk about Omax. I wish,
are people disappointed? Like what? Like what's
I think
the
they would
context
like a little
of the
more
conversation?
burn in situations like tonight where they needed size and instead they rolled with Luka and Keefe as the 5-man. And I get that. I just think that there are instances where particularly like 5-out basketball is really hard to defend against. And I would say that Omax has a very difficult, he has to unlearn some of the things that got him drafted. Like he was very much like when I coached second graders, I use ridiculous phrases like stick like glue to that kid. And that's what Omax does with guys. And it's really awesome when you need him to blanket the sun. But in terms of team defense stuff, I think he gets burned every now and again. I think he still plays fairly out of control, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. I wish Kid would let him play through it. But I think Kid is still doing the thing where if he makes a mistake, he gets yanked.
Yeah. And I think it's especially, well, now it's like, I mean, when the team was healthier, it's like, well, you've got Derek Jones Jr., you've got Dante Exum, you've got these options. Makes sense now. Like with Josh Green hurt, I understand that there's a clamoring, but he was also, he was the 24th pick in the draft, and 20, late lottery guys don't automatically become rotation guys. I mean, freaking Jarris Walker, the 8th overall pick for Indiana, can't even crack the rotation for the Pacers. Taylor Hendricks was like the 7th pick, I guess, to Utah, and he just now started playing. So it's not, a given just because they need someone of his position and archetype. So like, I don't know, like if he doesn't really do much this season, that doesn't really make a cause for concern, much like, we talked about Josh Green. And like, even though, there were things that frustrated us about his rookie season, I don't think you can't write the book on a guy.
That's right.
His first year. So yeah, it would be cool if he popped a little bit more. I think the thing that I can understand the frustration is he had that career game against Memphis, the 11 points. And then he's played a total of 10 minutes in the following 3 games.
Yeah.
Like that's tough. Like that was a Rick thing, like where he would just take rookies or young players that were playing well and just stick them to the end of the bench for almost no rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
So that's tough. But again, the 2 games right after were Lakers Timberwolves. So Kid might've been like, I don't want to play the rookie against these 2 great teams. So, but then, where is he against Portland? So yeah, I understand that like there's always a clamor. Everyone wants to see the younger player get in the game. Everyone wants to see the backup quarterback when the starter isn't playing well. So I understand
5 boards in 5 minutes tonight. There's something, there's something to his energy, and I get why you want to see that when you watch Dwight Powell.
Right, but he's just he has negative offense. Like he can't shoot. And he's still kind of learning his way off the ball and playing in an NBA offense and everything like that. So, it's fine. It's still young. Let's wait until we get through the All-Star break. And really, if he's not part of this rotation this season, again, it's not that big. I just don't think it's that big a deal.
That's right. All right. So here's what's going to happen next, guys. I'm going to throw up the show starter for our second live show. Josh is probably going to go edit and post some things at mavsmoneyball.com. We will be back the next time the Mavericks play. Do they play Monday? I feel like they play Monday. I feel like they play every other day from now until the end of time.
They really do. Let me get it. Let me pull it up real quick because
I should know these things.
It's okay. They play Monday at Denver, Wednesday at home against the Clippers, Friday at Houston, and then Saturday at home against the Spurs.
We'll definitely be here
smart.
for that Nuggets game. I was briefly tweeting back and forth with the guy who found one of your tweets who was like, the Mavericks are frauds. I can't wait till the Nuggets destroy them on Monday. And it's like, well, the Mavericks might be frauds, but I like fucking watching them. So who, go whatever.
Yeah.
See, this is why we did
they
this.
lost to the Nuggets.
They lost to the NBA champions. This is why I do the secondary live show, because it's like I want to get that guy, want him to come off Twitter, come up to my live show and like talk through his pain. Whatever the hell makes you get online and be like,
it's called like group therapy for a reason.
That's right. Though today is going to be Mavericks Party because the Dallas Mavericks won. So hang out for about 30 seconds. We'll be right back. For those on audio, look for this show a little later in the afternoon. This has been Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe of the Mavs, our Pod Maverick, and we'll be back shortly. Everybody have a great night. Hello again. Welcome back to Pod Mavericks. What is the name of the show here? It is Mavs Party. I am Kirk Henderson. I'm editor-in-chief over at MavsMoneyball.com. You are hanging out with me. It's 11:30 on December 16th. Josh Bowe and I just finished our regular recap show, and thanks to the advice of some of our stellar commenters, we are continuing with our regular post-game Fancast, which if you want to participate, if you want to come talk basketball with me, if you want to come yell at me or at any of the Dallas Mavericks related things that happened, if you want to gush over any of the players that we just watched, I want you to click the link in the live show comments for those who are watching on YouTube. It is a StreamYard link. It is pinned in the YouTube comments. I'm going to post it again and again and again. We'll see if we can get some people to hang out in here and come up and tell me what they thought about tonight's game or think about any of the things Josh and I just talked about, or talk, kind of in the basketball world in general, since this game wasn't exactly the best game that we've seen. Though the Mavericks are 16-9, 7 games above 500 after 25 games is pretty ridiculous to me. The Mavericks at the moment, where are we sitting in the standings now that things are a little more settled on the evening? The Mavericks are now, because the Nuggets lost to the Thunder on a last-second shot after basically winning the whole game, the Mavericks now hold a half-game lead over the, is it even a half-game lead? No, they basically hold a winning percentage lead over the Denver Nuggets. They're third in the West with that 16-9 record, which is absolutely hilarious to me. So we'll see what's going on with that. I appreciate you guys going ahead and hanging out in here with me. For those of you who have been following what was then the Mavs Moneyball podcast and then the Pod Maverick podcast for some time, we have hosted these sort of fan participation shows because Josh and I are fans. Josh is much more of an actual media member than I am, but I used to run these shows on, what was it? It's like Locker Room at first. There were these apps through your iPhone and through your Android that you could access without actually having to look at anyone. And now, because it involves having to join a video show, we get a little bit less, fewer people that want to come up and talk basketball with me. At the moment, I'm not really seeing anybody join. So if that's the case, what I'll end up doing is I'll end up closing this show here and just talk to myself for a few minutes, which is nowhere near as embarrassing as you think it might be. And I'll go play some video games or something distinct. Trying to think how much longer I can kind of, yammer on here, because Josh and I kind of covered a whole bunch of different topics that I was pretty excited about, covering over these last few games, just because, he and I rarely get to talk basketball at large. So we'll see what folks think about that if they want to come hang out. Brad in the chat said, "Why J Kidd steal your glasses?" Funny thing, Brad, I actually stole Jason Kidd's style, and I was really waiting for someone to cook me for that because it's one of those really embarrassing things where I made fun of Jason Kidd for like 2 years. I actually made fun of his glasses, only for when it was time for me to go get glasses. My wife told me that I should get these clear frames because they look good. So I was like, all right, that's fine. All right, doesn't look like anybody really wants to hang out and talk shop tonight. I can get that. It's not exactly the most interesting game to talk about, other than the fact Luka Doncic good. And we'll see what comes up on, what is it? I guess I play the Nuggets. Yeah, we just talked about this. This is how my brain is working. Oh, we have Brian. Brian says he wants to join here in a minute because he wants to. Brian is always a good regular contributor. But if no one wants to talk, it doesn't bother me. I'll just go do something else. Lord knows I do too much of this anyways. My wife came down during the other show twice with the baby and was made the point of like hand waving, being like, it's not a big deal, you don't need to wrap up the show. But she came down twice, so I feel very strongly that she did in fact want me to wrap up the show. So we'll see what's going on here. Man, this is just so funny. If they would have held on to actually defeat the Thunder in that crazy 30-point comeback, the Mavericks would be the second team in the West. It's just nuts. That's the kind of game that it's been, man. All right, Brian's joined here, so we're going to bring him up. We'll talk a little shop. Then for anybody, again, there's the StreamYard link. I'll post it one more time. It's pinned in the YouTube comments. You can come hang out with me. Tell me what you think. But Brian, welcome back to the show. What's up, dude?
Brother, thanks for having me. Man, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't get to see a whole lot of this game. I watched it for the most part through Twitter just because I was kind of out, and then I got back with some friends and I was checking in on the game and I just realized that my mic was muted for a second.
That was me. I pressed the wrong person to mute. I was going to cough and then I muted you instead of me.
Okay, I was like, wait, did I get in on it?
Are you familiar with the show The Rights to Ricky Sanchez?
A little bit, yes.
It's a 76ers show. It's one of the older fan podcasts. And they are so big now that they have their own producer for these shows that basically sits and does all the stuff that I do during it. And I'm friends with their show host. He was telling me about it because I was just been asking him some questions. I was like, how do you do these things? He's like, I don't do any of this shit. So-and-so does this stuff in the background. I'm like, fuck. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I think Fat Bullock is definitely going to stick with Grant until he learns how to, be productive when his shot isn't falling. Because, dude, when his threes are not going, it is ugly out there. Because everybody on the other team is like, oh, yeah, he's 6'4". I'm shooting right over him. Like, Jeremy Grant destroyed him in that first quarter. My goodness. It was really, really bad. By the way, Jeremy Grant, we saw you. Great audition. We saw you. We'll be circling back.
You didn't hear me. I knew you weren't in here. I basically was like, I don't want that dude.
Oh man, look,
stinky
cheese. Can I hear your reasoning again? Because I get it. I think I know.
I think at one point in time, before he decided to chase money, which I respect. Let me be clear here. That man has made generational wealth for his family. Before he decided generational wealth was more important than winning, I think he could have been a very good role player with specific teams. Now I think he has learned habits that are impossible to unlearn. He scores 23 points on 43% shooting. That sucks. Yeah. He's a highly inefficient player. And I think the argument can be made, the Mavericks don't need offense. They need defense. And they're not going to get defense from that guy.
I think the Mavericks are a bit in need of offense because if you're checking and you're following the trends of where our offensive rating has landed, over the course of the last couple of weeks, compared to everybody else in the league, whereas the first few weeks when Grant was hitting all those shots, we were like 1, we were 2, we were 3. The last few weeks, since Grant hasn't been shooting that well, Timmy has started to have some games over the last 7 games where he's struggling. It's looking more like 9th and 12th and 13th, and the level of offense where maybe you do actually need to be kind of good on defense for this to work, whereas if you add another dude that can just like the things we'd be asking him to do if he were to come here are not the things that that terrible Detroit team and this terrible Portland team are asking him to do. Is hit open corner jumpers, hit open above the break jumpers, and
Yep.
when Luka gets you the ball wide open or gets you the ball with a completely bent defense, slash and go dunk on somebody. And I'm still pretty confident he can do all of those things. Like if you just slide him in to where Derrick Jones Jr. is, except actually, no, I'd say slide him into where Grant is really, because Derrick Jones Jr. will probably still be the starting three, him or Exum. And you just have him, hey, sit open on the right side, either the right corner or the right wing. It doesn't matter where you're likely getting an open shot, no matter, which side you or which spot you sit in. And if not, creep along the baseline, and I guarantee you will get an open dunk because Derek Lively and Luka are just good at finding guys out of the pick and roll. And I think he could do that. I think the defense is what it is. It's just like you got to look at him like he is 6'8" Tim Hardaway, except because he's 6'8", the defense is kind of just like inherently going to be better, and he's not like lost on defense all the time the way that Tim is. So just by virtue of size and court awareness, the defense gets a bit better just from that. But yeah, he's essentially playing that same role. He's just someone that I think could create off the dribble a little bit better. Uh, well, hell, maybe not because Tim's been pretty good at that too this year, surprisingly.
Which is
Except
weird.
for in the games where
Tim was trending down on twos. I mean,
yeah,
number one, this is like, it must be clear. We just got to say this out loud. We're talking about this in small part because the game wasn't that interesting. Second, because I think the Mavericks fans are very much going to want this guy. And then third, it must be stated very clearly. I think he makes so much money that I don't think you can actually trade for him. It would be extremely difficult to put together a trade package for a guy who makes, I mean, he's averaging what? So 5 for 106. So it's like $32 million a year, something like that.
Well, so it escalates. The first year, I think it ends at like 36, something like that. The first year, this year, I think right now it's like at 27, something like that.
Mhm.
It's actually pretty doable. We could trade, and I know because I've done it in Fanspo many times. We could trade for him right now without much trouble, and it would literally just be Tim, Josh, maybe throw in a pick if you think that they're going to play hardball and want that, or Josh, uh, Holmes, and whatever other extra salary you want to set. I don't know. Like it could be done, but I get it. It's not like he's the only guy that's out there, right? So like we were talking, I was talking on the timeline with some guys about like, man, did you see that game that Patrick Williams had? Like, imagine if we
No.
just had that.
Yeah. No, I know.
Like he had like 25, 7 and 6, something like that, something crazy. He's been playing really well since Zach LaVine like got shot into the sun by the Bulls. Like apparently they all just kind of hate him. But
horrendous vibes guy, which is, and that's the second team that's happened to him too. That's got that. It is really, and it doesn't even sound like there's like any actual hate. It's just like, oh, can this guy go away? It was just
so frustrating playing with him. And like he goes, and you look at what Kobe White's been doing all season, really, but especially in the last like 10 games, they don't miss him. They don't need him.
No, that's true. That's true. Hey, just while I'm thinking about it, there's so for everybody that's listening to the show, either on audio or listening on Twitter or listening on YouTube. On YouTube, people, you can see the comments. The folks that are listening through Twitter, I'm not sure if you can see one another's comments because this is like cross-platform type stuff. If anybody that really wants to join the show and can't see the link to join the show, shoot me a DM on Twitter. I will forward you the show link. I am a lunatic that despite having nearly 20,000 followers, I actually use my DMs like a text chain and talk to people throughout the day. Brian can attest to this because I talk to him too. So it's like I will most likely see your DM, shoot me a message, and you can come join the show if you're at all interested. Anyways, so one of the things that Josh and I were just laughing about, we spent like 4 or 5 solid minutes of the show for this. Were you a person during the summer that wanted DeAndre Ayton on the team?
Oh God. I was.
Do you deserve shame?
I do. No, I admit it. Because if you look at what Tim and even Holmes, when Holmes has gotten minutes and not stunk it up, when you look at what they provided us this season, even if it were just sending the two of them, no picks, no nothing else, no extra players, just the two of them for Aiden, it wouldn't be equivalent value. That dude, God, man, I like Monty Williams isn't there anymore. I don't really know what's going on now. If it's just a lack of motivation, if he is just like struggling and feeling kind of lost and aimless because he knows that he got jettisoned into like a shitty situation with like no real good point guard except maybe Malcolm Brogdon, and he's just kind of disappointed to go from a playoff team to that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it, and that's reasonable. That's kind of understandable to me. But at the same time, you don't get out of that by playing like shit and with low effort and putting up 5 shots against a team that loses Derek Lively in the first quarter.
It's really
Like
something.
that didn't make any sense to me.
It's really something. I just had to bring that up. It's one of those funny things that nobody in their right mind is actually gonna attest to, because it's like you understand the process. If a former number 1 overall pick is available, you're not gonna really. But it's just Lively's worked out so much better than any of us could have ever imagined. So, it's okay to have like my worst take. Shout out to my friend Tyler Atoms, who bring this up to me every time. Where it's just like I used to have like. It's like midway through it's probably second or third year Jalen stuff, where I'd just be like, get this guy off my team. I can't handle these 15-foot bricks. And then the dude, then our man last night for the Knicks goes and scores 50 points and hits 9 of 9 from 3.
9 of 9 from 3.
Yeah. So it's just, the point is, nobody is absolved from bad takes. We all have bad takes. It's mostly fun to laugh about. Like, it's like our non-friend of the program, Yoda, like had if you only have bad takes, then you get cooked. Okay. Like,
yeah.
If your job is professional bad takesman, then you're going to get made fun of. I'm sorry. That's part of it. But otherwise, it just kind of comes with it from time to time,
Yeah. And I'm still a proponent of like secondary draft guys. Like, I mean, look at what happened for Aaron Gordon.
Sure.
Oh my God. I just saw this comment put up.
Let's say I want you to talk about this one. Finish your thought there, and then we're going to address Mora's comment. This is a great comment.
Yes, please. Okay, yeah. No, look at how Aaron Gordon has worked out for the Nuggets, man. I could probably pull up some more guys. Like, I mean, before Lonzo got hurt, well, hell, I guess Lonzo would count. Like, if you look at what he was doing in New Orleans after leaving LA, he's another guy, secondary draft, like a really high value lottery pick. You move him to another team, and suddenly he starts to find his foot and find his way. Then he goes to Chicago, and he looked like he was going to be something really outstanding, like not an all-star or anything, but a real linchpin to a team that was winning games that mattered, right? And like actually getting Zach LaVine to play like basketball that actually kind of mattered and give effort on defense. And then Lonzo went down, and the whole ship kind of sank, and they doubled down on it, and it all went bad. But I still love taking chances on those kinds of guys. That's why I wish we had tried to get in on Pat Will while that value was low early in the season, because now it's not.
I don't know that dude. That anybody that's like, I want $20 million a year, despite the fact that you score like negative points and just sort of wave from the bench. Like, I don't want that attitude on my team. Like, there's a pecking order to every basketball team. It's why I didn't want Draymond Green. You only get one asshole on the team, and our asshole happens to also be our superstar. And so it's like I know you got to go get your money. You got to do what's best for you. But then there's just a team building component of it. And the Mavericks are a team on the rise. They have 2 alphas. They have 2 top tier guys. One of them is an older guy that can't do what he wanted to do like he used to every night, and that's just fine. They got the young guy that's capable of doing whatever. So from a team building standpoint, it's just I don't want that energy. And that's an important thing to me. It's honestly why I didn't want Kyrie last year. I didn't want his mess. And I think that was a fair position to take. The fact that he's been amazing is important to that discussion now, but it's just, you look at what happens with guys over time. And so it's, for some of these guys, the risk, it's just, if the Mavericks were a less good team, or rather if Luka were less good, I think it'd be more fun. And so that's where some of these things keep kind of popping up. All right. I think we have to address this amazing question by Mara from a while ago.
Awesome.
Who would you pick, DeAndre Ayton or Christian Wood? I'm Christian Wood, man.
I was just gonna say, if we're factoring in the money that they're making as well, like what
I don't even think I'd factor in money. I just think I would purely do Christian Wood. He is, when he was with the Mavericks, he was nothing. I think there's some behind the scenes stuff, but in front of the cameras And to the media, paired with his play, he was nothing but professional, and he tried hard. He just wasn't great. Versus Christian Wood never gave a quote like, "I'm dominating." Like that shit hurt me too. I'm too old for this sort of talk. And so it's just that hurt. I will never live that one down. And so it's like on that alone, give me Wood.
Yeah, the nickname is terrible. The Phoenix Suns folk, they helped him coin it, and of course they did.
Master Baton, fucking bum.
Yeah. So there's that, right? And yeah, I feel like I would probably go with Christian Wood too, because at least with Christian Wood, for the most part what you're gonna get night to night. And he's kind of on a 10 program where, okay, very early on if his shot is falling and if he can play, or if his shot is not falling and he's starting to pout, and you just need to kind of yank him and reel him in and either go back to him later or just say, hey, this isn't your night. We'll try again next game. With Aiden, you don't know what you're getting night to night. And I was a guy who was defending him a bit in the summer because like he had major issues with his coach.
I would have liked to have seen it too. Yeah, that's where it's just like with this team, you had a chance to do something, put up a bunch of meaningless points and lose. And if you can't put up meaningless points and stats, well, see, that's the hard part. This is a great question, though. I'm really delighted on this. I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. I'm going to ask other people in my life this question.
I'm going to erase it from my memory 5 seconds from now.
Hey, we're a third of the way. We're a third of the way through the season. All right. Well, you got anything else for us? Thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to me.
Of course, dude. I just met. We're 23.
25.
No, we're 25 now. Yeah. We're 25 games into the season, and we don't have double-digit losses yet. Look, man. Say what you want.
Jason Kidd, coach of the year.
Jason Kidd, issues that you may have. Nico, he did this, he did that. Blah, blah, blah. Brunson just had a good game. Nico Brunson, how could you? We're 16-9, and nobody saw this coming. Many people within the organization and the fan base did not see this coming. So, man, enjoy this while we got it, because y'all know how fast it can end.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining, man. We'll talk soon.
Of course, brother. Peace.
All right. Coming up next is Brandon. Brandon, man, thank you for joining this show. I know you normally join the other one, but I'm going to be doing these two shows together, and then I'll just break it up by some video. So what's going on tonight?
Kirk, I'm good. Glad you came on, man. How you doing, bro?
I'm okay. It's almost midnight, and I'm not exhausted. I don't know how, but we'll see.
So you're getting used to being up late with baby.
That's right. But it's like the sleep deprivation. My wife let me sleep last night because she was out of town for 3 or 4 days in a row. She let me sleep all night, and I feel like a new man. It's weird.
Yeah, sometimes those power naps and that quick sleep helps a lot. Man, but you know what, Kirk? I was thinking, man, about Tim Hardaway Jr. And I made a comment in the thread earlier. I was thinking, man, I was looking at him and Jet's numbers, and I remember a time when Jet was playing well and people were talking about him getting 6th man and most improved player. And I kind of feel that way about maybe Tim this year, because not only is he being good as a 6th man, but just his improvement over a while with being consistent through these few games. If he could keep this consistency, then someone could make an argument about him being a candidate for both accolades. That's just kind of my take on it.
I think it's fun. Kid certainly thinks he's up for one for 6th man of the year. He talked about that in the pregame. This is nice. It's nice to have this much positive stuff to talk about. It really is.
Yes, it's not a lot being with the roster, not being just super talented right now, being very young and injured and stuff. It's just something to talk about. But I was also looking at just on Jet. I was also looking at some of his numbers and Tim's numbers, and surprisingly, they're very comparable. Field goal percentage, rebounds, assists, and that's just continuously throughout different seasons. They both
really
shot around the same amount, rebound amount the same amount, minutes, assists. Just thinking of it objectively, they have different styles, but when you look at Tim make these shots and kind of look at, think back on Jet, how, there were times when he struggled, then people maybe could see the comparison, but looking at the numbers, like they say, numbers don't lie, and it's just surprisingly how comparable their stats are.
I love it.
Yeah. But, And I feel like the upside, this kind of just random. I mean, like the upside, if you were to look at what Dallas had when they won, they had 4 core people that you could depend on. You had Dirk, Kid, Tyson and Jet, and you had Berea kind of coming up. And Dallas has, the opportunity to have 4 core players plus Exum if he stays consistent. I kind of wonder if they, kept their consistency and not really worried about hitting a home run if, they can make a run. Because I feel like Luka, he can carry a team, and Kyrie definitely is a force to be reckoned with. Consistent shooting and, Lively and Exum, if they could, kind of continue to hold their own, if their upside would be something like a shocker, like, when the Mavs won a championship.
Sorry, couldn't find my own mute button. I mean, I like the concept. It's right now. I sort of am wondering what happens when the Mavericks schedule difficulty increases. They look so solid right now, and there's a lot to sort of cast hopes on. Then the flip side is they played a ton of away games. Did you know they're leading the league in away games? Or their away record? They're 9-4 away
It's
from.
crazy.
So even as
Wow.
their strength of schedule will increase, they will also play some better teams at home. And there's a boost in that, even though the American Airlines Center is occasionally like a morgue. I like where you're going with this. I mean, it's fun to see which guys will stick around for longer. There's just a lot to feel very bullish about right now, and like I'm trying not to get too ahead of my skis because every time I do that, I feel like the Mavs take like 2 steps back.
Yeah, I always expect. I don't put a lot of stock in there. I always hope that they win, but I don't get surprised when they lose. But
Right.
think about this, Kirk, and I could be wrong, but it seems like the Mavs have the most consecutive sellout home season tickets, or the most consecutive sellouts in the NBA.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it goes back like years, which calls into question the legitimacy of the streak. It's gone on for so long.
For going
It's like
on
one of the
home.
right. It's one of those. It's like I've signed in on my iPhone 900,000 days in a row. It's like doesn't even mean anything anymore because it's like they just. But that with Dallas being such a huge area, it also wouldn't shock me if they're actually able to do this, just because tickets are such a hard thing to come by.
I know I've been to a couple of games, and there was a couple of times I could have slid down a couple of seats. Mm-hmm. But even so, even if it's like 90% full or 80%, there's still a lot of people. And I gotta kind of assume that would be, kind of a benefit of being able to wrap up this season at home. But then think about this, Kirk. If you look at all the teams in the NBA and look at Dallas, I mean, there's going to be some teams you can say, yeah, okay, they're going to beat them. But like, if Dallas are hitting on all cylinders and they're healthy, knock on wood, is it, can somebody justify saying that a team could beat them over 7 games? You know what I mean? Because they've shown the ability to hold their own against all of these teams. They're even, back in the past, whenever Sacramento was kind of running off the court, it was different because some of the teams that they were on paper better than would beat them. But now that they've kind of, shown the ability to, kind of win whenever they're playing teams that's not as good as them on paper and teams that's, with better records.
Yep.
It's kind of hard to say objectively that any team is going to kind of, maybe run them through 7 games. So I feel like that's the part of, somebody's going to have to try to, maybe inspire hope in these kids. And, when I say kids, I mean these 20-year-old individuals.
Yeah, I know what you mean. They're all children.
God, I'm 44.
Yeah.
Man. They're like super young.
That's right.
Who's going to inspire these dudes and, kind of make them, want it? Like, our backs against the wall. Let's try to do the impossible.
That's right. Well, man, I appreciate you joining the show as always.
Thank you, Kurt.
All right, talk soon. Have a good one. All right, we're going to bring up Brad. Brad, I'm pretty sure used to join some of my other live shows, but is making a transition over here to this one. He joined the show by shooting me a link, shooting me a request on Twitter, which goes to show you that I can operate 2 things at once. Brad, how you doing, man?
And yes, I did because you did 2 things at once. Yeah, very nice.
So what are you thinking tonight? What'd you think of the game?
Oh, realistically, I think the game tonight, honestly, is a great example of why we shouldn't expect anything great this year, but we should feel confident in the fact that Nico is like maybe putting us in a good direction. Like
so what do you mean by
Luka.
this? Are your expectations for this year? Where do they sit? Just so we can kind of all be on the same page.
Well, I mean, depending on where we place in the playoffs, right? Like you get out of the first round, okay, maybe.
That'd be exciting. I agree with that.
Right? Yeah,
I'd be thrilled.
And that's it. I think like getting past that, like maybe if we're shooting hot from three, but hey, Luka's got to come back in the fourth quarter when he's been playing 40 minutes a night for like the past like 4 or 5 games, just to keep us afloat against like one of the I don't know like what they are like the bottom 5 team in league. And obviously we've
Right.
got injuries, but like realistically though, like we need him to have that stabilizing force. But we've like found these wins along the edges, like Doncic, who everyone loves, of course. I think that we're just like take a slow change around to like find something where we can be competitive. Like back the thought that like Luka may leave Dallas, which not really that worried about, but
I'm
I
not
think we're
either.
in the right direction.
I'm not either. So there's a Rachel Nichols, formerly of ESPN ABC. She has a show on Showtime, and this week she interviewed both Kyrie and Luka. And Luka sounded as bullish about the Mavericks from an institutional perspective as he has ever sounded, like kind of by a country mile, because he's usually pretty cagey about that stuff, which I appreciate. So it's I think the overall direction is really the one that we would like to see. There's the sort of there's enough stuff to be worried about, but also they weren't going to fix missing the playoffs in a season. Like Josh, they're third right now, but my kind of goal has transitioned from just make the playoffs to now it's like just don't be in the play-in. That'd be nice, right?
Well, but like you can't lie to yourself and say like there was no thought last year to where I would have ever said after 22 games or however many it's been that we would be third in the West. There's no chance I thought that. Like that was not possible.
No.
I'd be like, oh yeah, we might be like 1 or 2 games above 500. Like, and I know our schedule's been like pretty cake, and that's fine. But like that's what we've been at. It's just like terrible against team. Whether it's got more serious, like he's got now here, right? But watch this environment has been better. Found these guys are like I'm like shouting like, can we extend them now, please? Like, how do we do this? Like, how do we keep them with us?
They do have him under a contract for next year. So, it's either under contract or they have the right to it's like the equivalent of
it's
bird
an
rights.
option.
I could be getting this wrong, but it's nice. It's nice. I'm feeling very good. Very good.
Yeah, I'm just saying like but I think the subtle things to saying like, oh, like I don't remember the last time like this, like sure, like we found Tyson Chandler like when he was like like, oh, this is a great player off injury. We found him. We're good to go. But like now I'm like, okay, like we got Derek Jones Jr., we got Dante Exum on like minimum contracts. And then it turns out that we're like, oh, maybe we should start these guys. Like that's just like I don't know. That's a great sign in our executive system to like identify these players that can like work well with Luka and work in the system that we're trying to do. And we're we may not be paying them like minimally before, but like we're right now paying them like nothing. and this is great. Like we got Grant Williams, who's who's going to be off and on, but like we're also paying him like basically nothing for what he's worth, and
Yeah,
I
it's
just
like
think
it's a
that,
fair value contract. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's I think this year is going to be in my opinion, is going to be a meh year. Like get back in the playoffs. We're probably going to lose in the second round, but we I think instilled the confidence to have people want to come here, and we've built something that is actually worth growing on, which we haven't had in a long time. Like being
I
able
like
to
it.
not play Dwight Powell, like just because like he's not good enough to play,
Yep.
is also a cool thing,
And then when he does play, like if somebody sent me a message asking if they could leave him at the airport, and I'm like, I get it, but they still need somebody. So
No, yeah. Dwight's the best. Like, I mean, he's an awesome guy, like for sure.
Brad, I hope you join again. So the way I'm doing these shows now is I just kind of do one continuous stream and then I cut up the audio and do it into different podcasts for the podcast feed. So if I'm ever doing one of these and you're on Twitter like you joined tonight, not via YouTube, just shoot me a message and I'll let you join.
Okay, yeah, appreciate you.
All right, talk soon. Have a good one.
All right, man.
All right. So we're going to be waiting for Krishna. We did have somebody briefly join the show with the handle of Mao Zedong. So I don't think that's an interesting name to see in the handle below. But we had a question while we're waiting for Krishna to return back to his computer. This is a good question from Kent. Kent says, who is in Europe now that could be another steal like Exum? So I don't have an answer for this, but I did want to bring it up in the sense of I tend to view the NBA. So I think the NBA is the best basketball league in the world. I don't really think there's a lot of like hot. That's a hot take. But I do think that when it comes to the best players in the world, let's just roughly go with that the NBA has every roster team has 15 guys plus I want to say three up to 3 guys that you can have. So it's 16 guys times 30 teams. And that's 16 times 30. It's 480 dudes. I would say the NBA roughly has 250 to 350 of the best basketball players alive in their league in any given moment. That leaves a lot of amazing players around the world who could join that choose not to for a variety of reasons. Oftentimes that has to deal with money, role, life situation, etc. You don't want to uproot your whole family. Like a guy that I always reference is my former high school teammate, Marcelino Huertas. He is still playing basketball overseas. Who's he playing for? But he played 1 year with the Lakers, and he probably could have come to like multiple teams over the course of his European career. I mean, he's 41 now. He's still playing, but when he was in his late 20s and early 30s, he could have played. I'm convinced. He played 1 year in the NBA, and then I think it went back. But it's just there's guys that can do this, that pop in and they're able to serve roles. I mean, it's the size, the defense, and the speed. I think is sometimes a little bit of a concern, but like the strength of a lot of the guys that are playing overseas is really high. There's a lot of unbelievable basketball players. Like 17 down there in the chat says Eddie Tavares is the guy that's out there. He's a 7'3" guy, plays for Real Madrid. He's just a monster of a human. There's a lot of options out there, and it's finding the guys that are willing to do what a guy like Exum is willing to do, which was take a low rent contract and a chance to prove himself because he's still a young man. I mean, I don't know this, but I don't see why Exum couldn't have continued to make good money in Europe, but he wanted to come back to the NBA. So that's got to be the key thing. All right. So last is Krishna, unless anybody else taps in. What's going on, dude?
Kirk, how are you?
Okay.
Good. I have a gift for everyone in the chat. You and Josh were talking about it. It's this massive L. It's a massive big L. Take the L. Oh my God. L for loser and lively. Oh my goodness. Look, I get it. Everyone was up in roar in the summer after the rumored. It was Tim, Rashawn Holmes, and like a first or something. And I was like, okay, I get it, right? It seemed like a good trade, but I was not devastated with it. Man, I feel good. I just felt good. I just had to get that out there because, I'm also not one to, try to dump on people. I don't like it. But you know what? When you're right, you're right. I feel good. I feel good being on the lively. It's not even a train anymore. We're calling it an airplane because it's just flying everywhere. It's zooming. It's a fighter jet, But all that aside, I think kind of everything about the game has been mentioned. I think it's just weird. It feels a little different from last season, even if the injuries are kind of devastating at this point and they've kind of piled up. But it feels like last season, the team one, I don't think was good enough to even get this win, which is sad to say, but is kind of a reality. And two, the effort is just there. And all of it really starts with Luka. Like Luka, clearly he took the last season to heart in a way that I think every superstar has that moment. And good. I'm happy for him. I'm happy that, he's not necessarily hurt. Like you never want to see, obviously, your best player in that kind of frustration, but it feels like he took it to heart and has taken this season pretty seriously, which is awesome for the team and for himself. Hopefully it gets him more positive recognition than he's already got, but he could always get more. And I think it's helped the team, right? I think when you see your best player be that good consistently day in and day out, or at least give the best effort, it feels like everyone else is trying. And sometimes it didn't feel like that last season. It felt like sometimes he was his own worst enemy. And I think I can't think of too many moments this season where he said that. I think I can think of one game, but it feels like that's happened less and less so far, which is why I feel like I feel pretty positive about it, even if this is a very tough stretch. But I also look at it positively because this team is going to get healthier and more chemistry is going to build. And, I get it. I get all the trade scenarios. I get the improvement in the team. But to me, it's like a philosophical question of team building, which is, how do you view this team? Do you view this team as a contender right now? Do you view this team as not even close to being a contender, on the brink? And I think all of those kinds of questions bring up what you want to do with this team. To me, I view them kind of in the middle. I think they could be a contender, but I think part of being a contender for them would be a lot of cards, falling for them, right? All the right things falling for them. And it's why I'm not super go all in right now. I think it's the one thing I give the front office some credit is they've been at least a little bit more opportunistic than the past front office in, you've talked about it, signing Dante Exum, signing Derek Jones Jr., a draft night trade. When was the last time we ever saw a draft night trade from this team? Not just moving down, but getting back into the draft. All these kinds of things I think are good moves. And it's not to say that they're perfect. Not at all. This front office has easily made some pretty bad mistakes as well. But I think I err on the side of positivity, even if I think this will be a very tough stretch for the team just because of the injuries. But the one thing we've talked about, and I feel like we've been talking about it for now, I can't even remember. The OKC game was like 2-3 weeks ago at this point. It's just effort. There's just been effort in all these games, which is something I don't think we would have said at all last season. I think you're muted.
I am muted. I was typing loudly.
No worries. I didn't know if you had something to say.
No, you're good. This is. I think your soliloquy is actually probably a top-notch place to end this show because I am out of gas and I'm looking forward to this Nuggets game on Monday. I did have a something to pitch out there because it's the very end of the show. Friend of me of the show, Matt Moore, HP Basketball. I just tossed him the question of what would you think of a Luka versus MVP or Embiid like top 2 MVP race? Like that won't happen because Giannis is still too good and Jokic is still Jokic. But he's like, I would love it because the two fan bases would tear each other apart. I
honestly think that. I think at some point, like Embiid's playoff record has to speak for itself at this point. Like Luka, I get it, short career. Luka's playoff record is easily better than Embiid's at this point, right? Like
that's not a question.
That's like the dude.
Embiid has won one playoff series where he has played in all 4 victories. Seriously, He has only played in one series where he was a part of all 4 wins.
Yeah. I mean, Luka is easily already a much better playoff performer. He's had Luka's had better series where he's lost than Embiid where he's won. I'll say that's easy. That's easy. And I think at some point, like I feel like last year really hurt him, even for this season. Now it's like it almost feels like Jokic from last season, where it's like everyone saw how bad Embiid was in the playoffs, and it was like, yeah, even if
that was what was so incredible is the people who were big fans of Embiid managed to push this narrative that Jokic was the playoff fuck up, and I'm just like, what?
Even
like it was crazy.
It made no sense to me because Jokic at least had made a Western Conference Finals.
Yes.
I get it. It's the bubble, whatever, but he still made a Western Conference Finals. He had won a playoff series before. He was also played more games. It's not to say Embiid's a bad player, but I feel like the discourse around all of this just gets so crazy. It's
I'm not interested in it. I don't want to talk about it.
Me neither. I just like, I think obviously all of this discussion really doesn't matter till like March, where you're after the All-Star break. And I think I put this in the chat. I feel like this discussion, like all of this, like sixth man, rookie stuff, obviously MVP, it's really only going to matter in March. And if the team is still winning and, up there and Luka's still having really good performances, then I think people look back at the stretch and say, oh, like, what are Luka's stats back then? And I don't think that will happen right now. I think there's just a lack of when you talk about national media, there's just a lack of bandwidth for national media folks where they can't watch every game, which I understand. But so what they do is they base it off of narratives from last season. So everything gets compared to last season rather than looking at this new season as a fresh one. And so I think personally that's going to hurt Luka for a while. But if the team is just like still going strong into the All-Star break and keeps going strong afterwards, I think that helps him. But for right now, I'm just happy. I didn't think we would be here at this point, honestly. We're 7 games above 500. I think it was a few weeks ago we were 7 games above 500, and we never hit that mark at all last season, which is like sad and insane to think about. But it's good that a team is at least racking up wins against bad teams. No matter how it is, it still feels good. So hopefully we get healthy and everyone takes care and has a great night.
Thanks so much for hanging out. We'll talk soon. All right.
Absolutely. Take care, Kirk.
All right. Okay. Great live show. Great, 2 audio shows that are both posting to the Pod Maverick podcast feed. Thank you so much for spending part of your time with me. If you could consider leaving a comment, liking the stream, if you're at all interested, if you have something you really need to say to me, didn't get to say here, we have podmaverickpodcast@gmail.com. Always interested in taking questions there. Thanks so much for spending part of your weekend with me, and we will talk to you guys on Monday night. Go Mavs!